None Like Him, great book. Everyone should be picking it up. But I want to steer our perspective looking through the lens of generosity in our finances. And you talk about reflecting or arrival. And how does understanding the difference between bearing the image of God but aspiring to be, in some ways, our own God affect how we handle our finances?
Well, I mean, you have to start, I think, back at the very beginning of the Bible to gain insight on this. And if you think about what the serpent promises to Eve in Genesis chapter 3, he says, God knows that on the day that you eat of the forbidden fruit, that you will become like him. And that's a really weird thing for the serpent to say to the woman, because the woman is already like him. In Genesis 1:26 and 27, we're told that the man and the woman are created in the image of God. So that means that whatever the lie of the forbidden fruit is, it's a lie that we can become like God in a way that we are not designed for. And so when you think about just the way that we think about our finances, probably the first place that we would look to in terms of God's incommunicable attributes would be that God is self-sufficient. There's really two that go together. He's self-existent, meaning that no one created him, but everything that we know is created by him. And self-existence is important for us when we think about stewardship, because if God made everything, then everything belongs to God. So that's a big deal because, and not only does it belong to him, but as its author, he has the right to determine its value and use. And so then everything that you and I have has been given to us to steward by a good and loving God. So self-existence, that matters. It's a question of origins. And since our origin and everything that we know originates in God, it means that he has the right to decide how his creation is used. And then self-sufficiency. God doesn't need anything. This is kind of an unpopular topic in current Christian culture, because we even have songs that are written that we sing on the weekends that say that God didn't want heaven without us. And so they brought heaven down, and that's not the worst lyric I've ever heard, but it does imply that there was something incomplete in God without us.
Right.
That he had
there was something
need.
missing out of his
I'll sometimes
self-existent,
say that,
self-sufficient nature.
Yeah, God had an us-shaped hole in his heart. And he didn't. He does not save us. He doesn't set his love on us because he needs us. And that's actually really great news because the record would show that if he needed anything from us, we would let him down. But he doesn't need anything at all. And so, let's say, Andrew, that you took your young family to Six Flags Over Texas, which is not far from where I live. And it gets to be about lunchtime and your kids are hungry. And so you walk up to a concession stand and you order 2 hot dogs and 2 Cokes and 2 bags of chips. And the person standing on the other side of the counter says, "Great, that'll be $86.25. And in that moment, what do? You
bring out my wallet because it sounds about right in the cost of things in Disney and Six Flags.
Yeah, that's right. And so, but the principle at play there is that the thing that we need is the thing by which we can be controlled. And so the fact that God doesn't need anything from me or from you or from anyone else or from anything in his creation is really good news, because it means that he can't be coerced. He can't be manipulated. And, but it is interesting, even as we talked about giving, a lot of people give with a low level intent to manipulate God. If I give, God will fill in the blank. But really, when you think of it in terms of stewardship, it all belongs to him. And then in terms of self-sufficiency, he doesn't actually need you in any way, shape, or form. It changes the way that we think about ownership, and it changes the way that we think about giving.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. Even further is, we talk about and being made in his own image. And then Jesus, when he's with, the Pharisees that are calling him out about in the currency, does he pay the tax? Does he not pay the tax? And he says, what image does this bear? And he says, well, Caesar. What image do you bear? And I've been imprinted on you. I've given you just a glimpse of being created out of me. And so I think your point in the book about talking about reflect versus rival is we're so quick to we would never say it, but we do try to rival God, and it does affect our finances in a big way. Rather than serving, we want to be served. Rather than give, we want to be given. And that is us acting like our own gods. And that is very dangerous if we approach our finances in the way we approach our careers in that way, is that we're not of service. I do want to dig deeper into what you talked about being self-existent. How does gloating that I'm self-made? A lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, I've probably been guilty at sometimes saying in my immaturity of saying, I'm self-made. How does that become an offense to a holy, self-existent God?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's what we would expect from the pagan, right? Someone who actually acknowledges that there is no higher point they can give glory to than themselves. But for the person who's united to Christ, there's no such thing as being self-made. I mean, truthfully, there's no such thing as being self-made at all. And that doesn't mean that our efforts, our good efforts, don't matter. It doesn't mean that there aren't real rewards that come from hard work. But we also know people who work really hard who don't see the same rewards as other people who are working hard. And so God decides who gets what ultimately. And then we do have an opportunity to show where our treasure is by the way that we respond to what we've been given. But I think we slip into that idolatry as soon as we begin to see ourselves as a terminus for God's good gifts instead of as a distribution point.